let's talk about Spaceman, Netflix's latest blockbuster sci-fi entry. I'm going to share my thoughts on the film. There'll be some spoilers in the mix, so there's a heads up for you. As always, please share what you thought of the film below. Spaceman had quite a lot of hype built around it, from myself included. It looked like a pretty good serious romp in space featuring the mature side of Adam Sandler, which I've always been a fan of. In recent years, he's really elevated himself in films like Uncut Gems and Hustle, though even going back to his earlier comedy work, I always had a preference for his more emotionally tuned works like Click, 50 First Dates, and Punch Drunk Love. So the idea of having that version of Sandler isolated in deep space was a concept I was looking forward to sinking my fangs into. But did it pay off? Well, the film is adapted from the 2017 novel Spaceman of Bohemia by Yaroslav Kalfar, which I haven't read, so if you have, I'd love to hear how the movie compares. Sandler plays Jakub, a Czech astronaut, who perhaps should have checked in with his accent coach a little more, who is on a solo mission in the Chopra cloud on the other side of Jupiter, which contains mysterious dust that must be investigated. Pretty standard space mission concept, not going to drop any points here though, but the most interesting thing about Jakub's mission is very arguably also its Achilles heel. While on his mission, Jakub encounters a giant talking space spider who he later names Hanush, voiced by Paul Dano. Now, I bloody love Paul Dano in every single thing he's ever done, and despite having flown under an unfair radar for most of his career, I'm glad his work as the Riddler had Dano's name as more of a household one, and now he has a good amount of notoriety worldwide. Not that he didn't before, just more so now. Here, Dano gives a really solid vocal performance, even though I think that in terms of characterization, it leaned somewhat obviously into Hal from 2001, whether intentional or not. That really calming, soothing voice, so you have nothing to worry about. Yes, it does fit Hanush well, though this was the first major element to the film that made me think it was trying to lean on the successes of the genre's greatest entries. You see, Jakub's mission isn't really of much focal importance here, with the revelation of what the Chopra cloud is not coming until much later, and by then I'd been well diverted away from that plot thread. This is due to the often heavy-handed emotional baggage applied to Jakub in relation to his life back on Earth. He's troubled by his relationship with his pregnant wife Lenka, played by Carey Mulligan, and he is haunted by his earlier memories. I do understand what the story was trying to do here, showing struggles that a lot of us go through and tying it up in a sci-fi bow, issues with separating work and home life with negative impacts, still being deeply affected later in life by things that happened to us ages ago, the feeling of isolation and trying to find solace in the most unlikely of sources to understand yourself better. Spaceman did attempt to tap into Jakub as a character study of depression, loneliness, and regret. And as someone who has experienced those things myself, the little touch the film had referencing comfort eating and how that can be a small salvation when feeling those emotions made it feel genuine. It made me realise that there was some level of care while handling the real world impacts of those emotions, which this film is an encompassing sci-fi analogy of. Yet my aforementioned Achilles heel is also in relation to how those topics are handled overall on a cinematic level. When we tackle those heavy discussions, the dialogue is written and the music is scored in such a way where it came across as rather forceful. Come on, you must feel sad. You must feel sorry for these characters. And that has an adverse effect on me as a watcher. The emotional conflicts didn't feel justified to me within the film. Everybody was given backstory, context, and time within the script for those emotions to be built and land with the audience. But for myself as an individual, it did feel a tad spoon-fed for most of the runtime. I quite simply wasn't invested in Jakub or Lenka's scattered relationship or Jakub's past hauntings discounting him because I wasn't naturally attached to either of those characters. The construction of the film itself made the emotional weight feel artificial and therefore lacked that raw sledgehammer to the gut feeling. A strong example of that I would give would be Interstellar, in relation to how the laws of time and space impact the relationships between certain characters, with heart-wrenching results. They were given better development and had much more eye-opening sci-fi concepts attached to them. With Spaceman, yes, there were impressive things here, but not completely original things to back the film up. Incredible VFX, but it didn't own its own space, pardon the pun. It looked and felt similar to a lot of other recent entries in the genre. The setting and mission concept also didn't whet my appetite and didn't really set themselves apart from the norm, in my opinion. However, sci-fi is an incredibly difficult genre to do anything original in, possibly the most challenging on a cinematic level, so this film's distinguishing factor always aimed to be that winding back and forth emotional narrative at its core. Yet even that didn't feel that new to me. There were so many sprinklings of Moon with Sam Rockwell here. However, I felt like in the second and third acts especially, Spaceman began blindly luring itself towards trying a bit too hard to be a Tarkovsky movie. I couldn't help but taste the notes of Solaris here, which for all intents and purposes, I think is on the correct side of pretentiousness. That comment is probably going to ruffle a few feathers, but what I mean by that is, Solaris isn't your average sci-fi movie in its presentation. It's artistic, trippy, entrancing, psychologically weaving its way into your mind, and at points can even fittingly make you mad. It's ethereal. You don't quite know how long you've been watching it while you're watching it, and tonally, that works. Solaris is pure art house sci-fi movie making. Spaceman tries to be, the result of which is trying to cram massive ideas into a rather small, unambitious box made of weathered material. And not gonna lie, some lines of the script during those heightened grand idea moments were a bit eye-roll inducing. Spaceman isn't an insufferable watch though. I don't hate it. There's a decent amount of stuff I did enjoy about it. I just felt like the overall story and the cinematic applications used to tell that story were simply not the right match for each other. A film that makes you feel and a film that wants you to feel are in two different categories to me, with this being the latter and not leaving much of an impression. At least to me. I have no doubt that there will be people watching this review who absolutely did get behind the characters and understood their worries, and have taken something away from its deeper messages about life and tackling those erosive feelings. And if that's the case, then I'm really happy you took those things away, and would love to read your stories in the comments about how the film impacted you. But overall, despite a star-studded cast and impressive production value, it's the stuff that sat behind the Spaceman's visor that caused the issues for me. Not a bad watch, but not one I'm inspired to experience again. This, however, is just my honest review. What's yours? I'm Connor Waits, thanks for checking out the review. Also, for more regular viewers wondering why it's been quite a while since there's been an upload on the channel, basically I recently started a new job, so I've just been taking a bit of personal time out, chilling, spending some time with family and things like that, and just adjusting to the new routine in my day-to-day. But hopefully now it's the start of business as usual with the channel once again. So there you go, if you were wondering, you nosy bastards, that's why. Cheers out.